Hello, I'm Andrew Idzior, and I work as a chemist for the Office of Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Assessment. It's in the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, and I perform manufacturing process assessments for CMC sections. And I'd like to share with you some common manufacturing process and facility deficiencies associated with ANDAs. So this was designed for the learning objectives and the challenge questions. So we're just intended to allow you to understand some common process deficiencies associated with major withhold recommendations for generic drug applications. And also we'll cover the common pre-approval inspection deficiencies associated with major withhold recommendations for generic drug applications. So we're covering both manufacturing and facility-related deficiencies associated with ANDAs, but the focus is on deficiencies that supported major withhold decisions for ANDAs. Generic drugs are very important to the U.S. market. They make up 90% of U.S. prescriptions, but it's less than 18% of the total cost. To reach the U.S. generic market, drug applications must go through FDA application process, but a 2019 GAO report found that 12% of ANDAs submitted were approved in the first review cycle. The report considered ANDAs from 3 years, 2015 to 2017. And some years after that report, the FDA has issued almost 300 product-specific guidance documents in the 3 years from 21 to 23. And these guidance documents are intended to help identify the most appropriate methods for developing drugs and generating evidence needed to support ANDA approval. They're available on the FDA website. And a review of the data from the generic drugs program monthly and quarterly activities reports shows that in the 3 years from 2022 to 2024, the percent of ANDAs approved in the first review cycle has increased 50% compared to the amount that was cited in the 2019 GAO report. Although this is progress, the majority of the ANDAs received result in first cycle withhold recommendations and complete response letters. So once a review cycle is complete and an application is found to be not ready for approval, deficiencies are communicated in a complete response letter, CRL. Deficiencies are classified as major or minor based on whether the response to the deficiency will require extensive assessment by FDA. Amendments to ANDAs that address major deficiencies are considered major amendments. Major amendments are expected to require extensive assessment by FDA and longer timelines for such assessment. The review cycles for major amendments can be 6, 8 months, or 10 months. The default is 10 months, but various factors described in the guidance could result in an 8 or a 6-month timeline. However, minor amendments have a review cycle of 3 months. So we just had a challenge question here. The review timeline for amendments in response to major deficiencies is 180 days, 9 months or 18 months, 6, 8 or 10 months, and then 3 months. And we just went over that, so it's 6, 8 or 10 months, of course. Because the FDA assessment timelines are greater for major amendments, the presentation today will focus on the major process and facility deficiencies that were associated with first cycle complete response letters. FDA guidance lists categories of major deficiencies based on the associated assessment team discipline, such as drug substance, drug product, manufacturing process, and facilities. For the process discipline, the guidance documents lists 10 separate examples of major deficiencies. I didn't want to go through all 10 of them. And then for facilities discipline, the guidance document lists 2 examples of major facility deficiencies. They're listed here. A proposed facility is determined to be inadequate, or the ANDA does not include complete identification of the facilities. And we'll continue in more detail about these deficiencies here. To report common process and facility deficiencies, we collected and analyzed data from the first cycle and a complete response letters. The data was limited to ANDAs from fiscal year 2023. From fiscal year 2023, there were 125 ANDAs that received first cycle complete response letters with major deficiencies. The total number of ANDAs for FY23 was about 750. Major process deficiencies were collected as written from complete response letters. Process deficiencies are typically identified as one of the examples listed in the FDA guidance. The major facility deficiencies were all due to a proposed facility determined to be inadequate. From there, additional categorization of the facility deficiencies was performed to describe the reason for those determinations more specifically. So here we have the first cycle major manufacturing process deficiencies from FY23. There were a total of 7 applications within the first cycle that were determined to be not ready for approval due to major process deficiencies. The major process deficiency categories were a need for new exhibit batches to support proposed commercial scale-up plans, a risk of process-related leachable substances that was not adequately addressed by the ANDA, and lastly, a need for new exhibit batches due to a formulation change. So we have another challenge question here. For FY23, only 7 applications were associated with process deficiencies. And then we have a simple true or false. And the answer here is actually false. This question is just designed to highlight the focus on the data that we presented. The focus on this data is for FY23, and we're looking at the major process deficiencies. There were many more than just 7 process deficiencies, but the focus here is on the major. And it's also focused on those that receive first cycle major process deficiencies that resulted in a complete response letter. And then aside from those common process deficiency categories, by analyzing the data by dosage, we can see that all the major process deficiencies were associated with liquid dosage forms. And almost all the deficiencies within the liquid dosage form category were associated with parental drug products. This is the first column there. There are some FDA resources that address these process deficiencies. For the process deficiency category of new batches needed to support commercial scale-up, a review of the product-specific guidance documents could be helpful. The product-specific guidance documents are available on the FDA website, and some of them do include information for appropriate batch sizes for exhibit batches to support ANDA submissions. There is also guidance released in 2014 that recommends exhibit batch sizes for various dosage forms. It's also listed there. For the process deficiency of a risk for product equipment related leachable substances or pearls, you can access a previous SBA 2024 presentation on the topic. The presentation was recorded and it's available on YouTube. An additional resource is a previous SBIA 2024 presentation on the toxicology aspects of the pearls risk. The slides for the presentation can be accessed on the FDA website. We're going to move on to the common major facility deficiencies. The major facility deficiencies from fiscal year 2023 can all be considered as fitting in the same deficiency category according to that FDA guidance document, which would be that the proposed facility was determined to be inadequate. From there, the deficiencies can be further categorized by the reason for that determination. These reasons include observations made during a GMP surveillance inspection of the facility, observations made during a pre-approval inspection of the facility was actually not ready for an inspection, and quality information was not provided in the ANDA for device components for the manufacturing facility. When we analyze these deficiency categories by dosage form, we can see that only liquid parenteral drug products and solid dosage forms such as tablets, capsules, patches, oral powders were associated with pre-approval major deficiencies in the first review cycle. From the major pre-approval inspection deficiencies, the associated inspection observations were collected and analyzed. The chart here represents 22 ANDAs from fiscal year 2023 that were associated with first cycle major facility deficiencies due to pre-approval inspections. Most of the inspections resulted in 3 observations. However, it's interesting to note that some of the pre-approval inspections only had a single observation. The observations from the pre-approval inspections were categorized into broad categories listed here. Observations were related to raw material testing, post-production activities such as stability testing and reserve samples, data integrity, quality assurance activities such as training and investigations, which excludes OOS investigations, laboratory operations, microbiological contamination, and that includes controls to prevent contamination, lack of microbiological development data, and cleaning and maintenance that doesn't adequately prevent contamination. There was also production activities, which includes a lack of data to support manufacturing steps, inadequate in-process controls, and visual inspection program deficiencies. Lastly, there are facilities and equipment, which includes equipment not qualified or not available, cleaning and maintenance, and water system deficiencies. In this chart, the liquid products are represented by the blue color. The solid drug products are represented by the orange color, and the hash pattern represents the total count. Observations issued by FDA investigators during pre-approval inspections may result in first cycle inadequate major CR letters. Pre-approval inspections of API facilities resulted in first cycle inadequate major CR letters for 4 ANDAs during the fiscal year 2023. They're not represented here. This is focused on the finished product dosage form facilities. Regarding only drug product manufacturing facilities, PAIs resulted in first cycle inadequate major CR letters for 18 ANDAs during fiscal year 2023. You can note that mitigating responses to PA observations may be provided to the FDA before a first cycle assessment is completed. However, the drug product facility inspection deficiencies that are detailed here were not mitigated by such responses. Solid dosage forms such as tablets, capsules, films, patches, powders for reconstitution accounted for 9 ANDAs, and the remaining 9 ANDAs were all for liquid parenteral drug products. So the observation writing style differs for each inspection. Some single observations list multiple deficiencies, while other inspections result in separate observations for each deficiency. Additionally, the significance of a single observation may be considered greater compared to lesser observations. Therefore, entire inspections were associated with categories of deficiencies without actually counting the number of observations for this chart here. The result is that the x-axis of the chart, we have the number of ANDAs that resulted in a first cycle complete response letter for each of these categories. Of the 9 liquid parenteral drug product ANDAs, 7 were associated with microbiological contamination inspection deficiencies, 5 were associated with laboratory inspection deficiencies, and 5 were associated with production inspection deficiencies. And an additional 5 were associated with quality assurance inspection deficiencies. We can see that for the 9 solid dosage form drug product ANDAs, 8 were associated with facilities and equipment deficiencies, 6 were associated with production inspection deficiencies, and 5 were associated with laboratory inspection deficiencies. The categories of drug product manufacturing inspection deficiencies that were most frequently associated with first cycle inadequate CR letters for ANDAs during the 2023 were facilities and equipment, production, and microbiological contamination and laboratory. From there, the inspection observations were further categorized into subcategories to provide more specificity. The table only shows the inspection deficiency subcategories for the liquid parenteral ANDAs. Of the 9 liquid parenteral drug product ANDAs, 5 were associated with inadequate investigations, which actually excludes OOS investigations. 5 were associated with inadequate microbiological controls and procedures, and 5 were associated with lack of microbiological data to support manufacturing steps. These subcategories were all associated with the same number of ANDAs, so there is no clear most common pre-approval inspection deficiency for the liquid parenteral drug products. Moving on to the inspection deficiency subcategories for the solid drug product ANDAs, we can see that from the 9 solid drug product ANDAs, 6 were associated with equipment that wasn't qualified or available. 5 were associated with inadequate in-process controls for manufacturing steps. 4 were associated with inadequate cleaning or maintenance procedures. And lastly, 4 were associated with a lack of data to support manufacturing steps. So it's clear the most common pre-approval inspection deficiency for solid drug products, it's the equipment is not qualified or available. We can summarize the information to identify the top 3 subcategories of pre-approval inspection deficiencies. For liquid parenteral drug products, the top 3 subcategories are inadequate investigations, inadequate microbiological controls and procedures, and lastly, lack of microbiological data to support manufacturing steps. For solid drug products, there was a tie for the 3rd most common category. So listed here are the subcategories: equipment is not qualified or not available. Cleaning or maintenance procedures are inadequate or not followed. Inadequate in-process controls for manufacturing steps, and lastly, a lack of data to support manufacturing steps. We have a last challenge question here for FY23. What was the most frequent pre-approval inspection subcategory associated with process deficiencies for solid dosage forms? And that's actually equipment is not available or qualified. So we're getting close to the end here, and this is a summary of the findings from the data that we collected and analyzed. ANDAs were associated with major process deficiencies. None of them were solid drug product ANDAs. The most common major process deficiency were new batches needed to support commercial scale-up plans and risks associated with pearls. There were 18 ANDAs that were associated with major facility deficiencies from pre-approval inspections of finished drug products. They were evenly split with 9 solid drug product ANDAs and 9 liquid parenteral drug product ANDAs. The most common categories of observations for the liquid parenteral drug products were inadequate investigation, which again excludes OOSs, inadequate microbiological controls, and a lack of microbiological data to support manufacturing steps. For solid drug product ANDAs, the most common observation subcategory was equipment is not qualified or not available. So the data presented here is just limited to FY 2023, and it's just for the first cycle major CRLs for ANDAs. I think we're going to be taking questions as a panel a little bit shortly. And that's all. Thank you.